So we are here with Artem Zhiganov, and today we'll talk about Harmonica, and this is another episode of the Democracy Innovator podcast. So thank you, Artem, for your time, and I'm very
Thank
curious
you
about
for having me.
Harmonica, and so the first question is, what is actually Harmonica?
I can tell you about Harmonica, but maybe you want me to give you some quick intro, like my background.
Also, your background,
Yeah.
whatever like you like.
Okay. So my background is in product marketing. I used to do like a lot of user research and communication strategies, and eventually product strategies for clients, like product innovation, like design sprints, um, customer experience design. Then I got very tired of all that, and I decided to make like a pivot and find something that would be that resonate with me more. And that's why I decided to get some education, like a degree, and I went to the UK where I studied innovation management. And part of that program was writing a thesis, and I decided to write my thesis about cooperatives. And then I learned about commons, Eleanor Ostrom, and I realized that this is like super profound theory that she was working on. I mean, her research that took 40 years maybe, and eventually she got a Nobel Prize for that research. She was the first woman to ever get a Nobel Prize in economics. So Eleanor Ostrom was a great uh, political scientist, maybe political economist, anthropologist, who believed that community shared resources, or communities with shared resources, is an alternative to markets and states. So basically, this is like a third economic paradigm that is very different from both companies, like private companies, and also the states. The state-based management, or state-owned companies, or planned economy, and so on. So that was very, very inspiring for me, and that's how I got into Web3. I was a governance lead in a DAO, and I consulted a few DAOs after that. That's how I got into Metagov, because Metagov is like this community that is researching cutting-edge governance and Web3 governance in particular, and I was learning a lot from Metagov. And also I got into Newspeak House, which is a very interesting place in London where they kind of try to cross-pollinate ideas that are related to governance and open source and civic tech, and basically like intersection of democracy and technology. It's one of the most interesting places in the world, I think, for people who are interested in democracy and technology. And that's where Harmonica started. So I came up with the idea for Harmonica while living in Newspeak House in London, and also working as a governance lead in a small DAO. And as a governance lead, I was really struggling with, getting some input from the community, like trying to get people comment on proposals in the forum, write those proposals, join workshops and contribute during those workshops, fill out the surveys that I asked them to fill, All of that was very, very difficult. Like, people didn't want to do anything. They didn't want to write proposals. They didn't want to discuss proposals. They didn't want to fill out the forms. They didn't want to join workshops. It was like herding the cats, right? So at the time, I didn't know that, but basically, this is what I call sense making right now. So when I was, during my residency at Newspeak House, ChatGPT came out, and it was like a very, very big topic, like for a lot of conversations that happened in late 22 and 23, which some of those I was part of. And so we discussed how language models could be used to improve governance of communities. And that's how Harmonica started. Like, I thought that maybe we could use generative AI to help with sense making, to help community managers, governance leads, and everyone else who has to act as facilitator, not necessarily being a professional facilitator, but everyone who is managing a community has to facilitate discussions from time to time. They have to facilitate. And so how generative AI could help them? How can we empower those people in those roles to basically do decent collective sense making? So that's what Harmonica is about.
Okay, it's I've seen. I was looking about your curriculum. That is, I would say, half economic and half, innovation management. And it's interesting. It will be interesting to know how you develop this product. I mean, this software. Also, in terms of, I've seen that you applied for some grants, and that was something I think that allow you to build the platform. But it will be interesting, I think, for the people that want to build a platform, also to know a little bit about the background, because your background in economic, I think it made in a way for you. It was maybe easier for you to find some money to sponsor the project, or no?
Nope. No, first of all, I don't have background in economics. I studied at
Okay.
Higher School of Economics. That's the name of the university that I studied, where I got my bachelor's degree. And it was like a long time ago, 20 years ago. I graduated in 2007. But I didn't study economics. I studied management. And then I worked in advertising, and then I worked in product management, and I tried to build some startups before Harmonica, but I never, it was more like experiments, and I didn't raise any like venture capital for those. Sometimes I just invested my own savings. Sometimes it was like friends and family. And with Harmonica, it's actually the same. I invested my savings, and I got some grants, got some donations from friends through Giveth, which is a platform for crypto donations. By the way, we're participating in the quadratic funding round on Giveth right now, and we would really appreciate even like $1 donation if anyone can do that before 14th of February. And Harmonica is open source project. So while we discussed a few times if it's possible to to raise venture capital for open source projects, and I think there are some examples of that. I think that's basically it's possible. But after reading Eleanor Ostrom and going into this kind of post-capitalist thinking or school of thought, not only thanks to Eleanor, but also some other researchers and thinkers like Michel Bauwens, for instance, from P2P Foundation. Like I became very disillusioned in venture capital. Like I really don't want to go that route. I want Harmonica to be like truly open source, without this kind of growth imperative or for-profit imperative. Like I don't want to build Harmonica for profit, which makes it much harder to build it. Like we won a few grants, actually 2 grants through Gitcoin. I think one of them was like $3,000. Another one was like 7,000. So that's not a lot of money. And I hope that we will figure out how to make it more in a more systemic way and make Harmonica self-sustainable without compromising the open source narrative or ethos that we are committed to. So right now it's a free tool. There are no subscriptions, and we might introduce some kind of premium features for B2B customers. Maybe that would be certain to address specific use cases that are important for B2B customers, which would be which could be, I think, available as like additional thing, but the core product, the core experience of Harmonica should be free and available to everyone. And so we rely on grants and we rely on donations.
Okay. Yeah, it's very important for this kind of products or projects. Maybe it's this word fit better. Yeah, I think to be open source, because we are talking about very serious things. I mean, you're talking about Sensemaking, and it's a nice way to describe what the software does. And yeah, it seems quite hard for innovative projects to have some funding. And yeah, sorry for the misunderstanding about your background. And I was thinking about like the first question, like what is Harmonica? Like for someone that has never tried the tool, like I've tried it, and is a chat in a way, and the user has a conversation with an LLM about a certain topic, right?
Yep.
And the idea is to collect all the different positions. How would you describe it in to someone that has never tried it?
Yeah. So what's the actual product? How it works? Yes, you're right. We decided to focus, at least for now, focus on one-on-one dialogues with participants of each process, each session. We think that it has a lot of benefits. People can be much more honest or open, and they can be anonymous, and they don't have to, think about what other participants, or maybe their team members, or like people from their organization, how they might interpret their words. They can do that at their own time. Like it's important to note that Harmonica is facilitating asynchronous discussions or asynchronous workshops, asynchronous deliberations. So yeah, so the host creates a session and invites the participants. And participants join the session and they start talking to the AI, right? The language model through our web app, through the chat interface that you mentioned, which is very similar to ChatGPT. But unlike ChatGPT, it's a multiplayer experience. It's a multiplayer session, which means that even though everyone talks to AI, the AI is saving all those responses to a vector database, and it can ask follow-up questions or additional questions based on other participants' responses, what we call cross-pollination. So basically, we want participants to be able to comment on each other's ideas or build upon each other's ideas while talking to AI. So like they talk to each other, but indirectly. They talk to each other through the AI. And the AI synthesizes the statements, the responses, and it can identify the clusters of opinions in a way like similar to what Polis, how Polis works, right? So with Polis, you create some seed statements and participants can react to those statements, but also they can add their own statements. And then other participants can react to those additional statements from you. And so eventually you can create this kind of clusterized, or like you can map the opinion clusters of your community. So we want to do something similar with Harmonica, but with conversational interface, so that everyone can just chat with the AI. And also we are working on additional modes of input like voice, so that you won't have to type. You will be able to talk to Harmonica. And also we want you to add like additional like elements like sliders, like maybe like multiple choice and so on. So it would be much more flexible or dynamic experience for participants, but most importantly, their responses will be saved in this session database or context window, session context. And first of all, the Harmonica will identify like important statements or maybe outliers, like strange ideas that it thinks are original. And then, for instance, ask participants what they think about those strange ideas, outliers. Because what we believe is that consensus is overrated. Like consensus or common ground is, it can be, it's great when community is very aligned and like everyone is on the same page and on that common ground. But also I think especially in larger communities, like common ground can be quite bland. Like when there's a lot of people, something that all of them agree on can be quite small or banal, like obvious. And then it's very, very important to get feedback on less obvious ideas coming from some of those members, some of those groups. We want other groups to comment on those ideas. And then hopefully it will be much easier to, for instance, like develop a strategy that would be very inspiring for most of the community. But it wouldn't be boring. It wouldn't be obvious. It would be based on some of the outlier ideas coming from some of the members, which are supported by other members. You know what I'm talking about? So it's not just finding common ground. It's not just finding something that everyone agrees on. It's about amplifying the good ideas. And then that's, I think, what Sensemaking is about.
Okay. So I would say a sort of AI mediation, and also a sort of collective brainstorming with the LLM.
Yeah.
This is very interesting. I was also thinking about the voice input that could make everything easier.
Mm-hmm.
And About there is also an idea that I thought about. So collectivization of problems. Like someone has a certain kind of problem, maybe in the same town another person has the same problem, and eventually this tool, this project could show that many people in that place share the same problem, and so eventually they can also try to find a solution to that.
Yeah.
And you told me about a little bit about the idea, how you had it, and but I would like to ask you if you were interested in these topics, not maybe not in civic tech, but like in your experience. Have you had any previous thought experience about conflicts? Because sometimes it's normally we disagree, and sometimes we understand the other person, but we not share what they say, what that person say, and I don't know. Was there for you like a moment when you thought, okay, we need new tools? I don't know, maybe a personal situation, something that you thought, okay, we need new things because it's hard to agree if we use normal, if we just communicate in a normal way, while with AI and the use of LLM could facilitate conversations.
To be honest, conflict resolution wasn't something that I thought about when I came up with the idea for Harmonica. Like I said, it was more about my struggle with just getting input from the community. Like it was very, it took me a lot of time, and also I had to process the inputs. Like for instance, when I did like workshops in Miro, not sure how to pronounce it. People added some stickers to the whiteboard, and then after the workshop, I had to copy all those stickers somewhere and like try to cluster them and synthesize them so that it would be like something like actionable, like some kind of summary of the workshop. And to me, it was like one of the most difficult things in terms of workshops, virtual workshops. So it's also about time, basically, right? So it took a lot of time, and also it was hard to engage people, just get like a lot of people to participate. And finally, like for instance, with like OKRs, right? Like objectives and key results, which is a very popular framework for setting like objectives for organization. Like I tried to do that with my team, with other teams, but first of all, I didn't have much experience with it, so I wasn't entirely sure that I'm doing it the right way. And secondly, other people didn't know about OKRs until I told them about it. And so for them, it was like a learning experience, and they didn't quite understand what they need to do. So I think what Harmonica, one of the benefits of Harmonica is that it helps you to use the right framework in the right way. Like for instance, if you want to develop OKRs, like Harmonica will know how to do it. And if you want to develop a theory of change for the community, Harmonica will tell you or suggest one of the ways to develop a theory of change. In terms of conflict resolution, I think that's a very interesting topic. Basically, for me, conflict resolution is one of the key elements of governance. So a lot of people, I think there's like a very popular like misconception. A lot of people think that governance means decision making, and actually that's not the case. Decision making is one part of governance, but it's not only decision making. It's also, code of conduct, for instance, like certain like principles of how your organization is like operating, and that there's a big overlap between those principles and decision making. Ideally, the decision making should be like synchronized with your values and your principles. And there's also a very important topic of tools, like what tools do you use and who has access to those tools, like who can actually edit or delete, important documents in the cloud. That's a very, very big part of governance to me, which some people just don't think about enough. Some communities don't think about. And then there is conflict resolution, which is also equally important. Like, how do you actually resolve conflicts or disputes? Which is, by the way, like it's one of the design principles of Elinor Ostrom. Like Elinor Ostrom got her Nobel Prize basically for developing 8 design principles for building successful commons. Like how to create a successful commons. Like if you want to build like a open source project, like or if you want to maintain a forest. She was obviously researching forests and like fish in the water, but the same principles apply to open source projects and other digital commons. So conflict resolution is one of those 8 principles. Like if you want your community to maintain or develop shared resources, you need to have conflict resolution in place. And I don't know if like how exactly AI could be used for that. I'm sure there's probably like a few different startups that are trying to develop to build a tool for conflict resolution with AI right now. But Harmonica is so I think for conflict resolution, facilitation is also very important. Basically, facilitation is something that is important for sense making and for conflict resolution. So, and Harmonica is trying to understand how to turn facilitation wisdom into code, like how to codify facilitation wisdom so that AI could facilitate workshops in a specific way. Like, for instance, like a retrospective, right? Like Harmonica can run a retrospective for your team. It will talk to participants, to team members, and it will ask them about, like the standard retrospective questions, like what was good about the last sprint, what didn't work so well, what can be improved, and how could we actually improve it, or how can we fix the problems, right? So there's like 3 main questions in a retrospective, and it's kind of obvious, like, yeah, like you can write a prompt for like GPT and explain all that for the language model, and then this prompt will be used to like talk to each participant, collect the inputs from them, and then another prompt, which is also part of the retrospective session, will be used to synthesize all those responses and generate a summary of your retrospective. And that summary would be pretty good. Like it will be very close to what like a retrospective output should look like, according to like agile thinking, like experts in agile management who we really want to collaborate with, and like we want them to give us feedback. Like if the prompts that we are using are not very good, then we are happy to change them, improve them, or maybe those experts want to create their own prompts and their own templates, as we call them. And it can be not only about agile, it can be about anything. And so maybe conflict resolution could also be, part of that experience. Maybe there actually can be like a lot of different templates, a lot of different frameworks that help people to resolve conflicts. We just haven't thought about that yet. But maybe it's actually important like direction for tools like Harmonica, like how how you could how the AI should talk to people. But why I'm a bit skeptical about this is I think conflict resolution is emotional. Like when you try to develop like OKRs or a roadmap, it's just about ideas. It can be quite rational. It doesn't have to be emotional. With conflicts, I think there's much more emotions in place. And I think it's very important not to lose those emotions in the process. Like you need to actually ideally you want to be in one room with someone to resolve the conflict. Like if you just talk about that stuff through Zoom or some other video conference tool, it's already like harder to resolve the conflict. And if you do that through chats with AI, I'm afraid that you just you just lose all the emotions that you need to actually hear the other person. Like not just not just the words, but also like the body language and stuff like that. So I don't know. I mean, conflict resolution is a very big topic. Like you could think about like projects like Claros, right? Like Claros is doing kind of decentralized conflict resolution, but that's more like a court, right? Like you just have people who try to resolve conflicts as a service using blockchain, but I don't think they're using AI.
I think right now, no.
Yeah.
And you made me think that maybe facilitation is the step before conflict resolution. I mean, because
I guess
if we
it's
are
just like the fundamental skill that you need for conflict resolution as well as sensemaking. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If we have a way to understand each other before we have a conflict, then hopefully we do not have a conflict. And so that's why I think tools like Harmonica could be very useful. And I'd like to ask you if you encountered any kind of problems. I don't know, maybe you were thinking about something, okay, we have to do it in this way or in another way, and then you faced something unexpected. I don't know.
Well, every startup has like dozens of things like that until they get to their like product market fit, and we haven't got there yet. So I guess we have something like that like every week. But also like when you ask me about this right now, I need some time to like remember something that would be interesting to talk about. Like in general, this is all very fuzzy, right? Like for instance, we started with Discord bot. Like the first prototype that we built was a bot for Discord, and then we realized that it's not that easy to like facilitate a workshop in DMs on Discord or through DMs on Discord. Also, like a lot of people that I talked to about Harmonica, they were not on Discord. Like they had to install Discord and register just to be able to test Harmonica. So then we decided to move to Telegram, and like last summer, I was invited by a Zuzalu community. I don't know if you know Zuzalu or Zuzalu. It's like conferences sponsored by Ethereum Community Foundation. So the first one was in Montenegro in 23, and last year it was in Georgia. Georgia, the country, not the state. So they invited me to help them organize one of the weeks because it's a long conference. They call themselves Pop-Up Village. So I think it took like 6 or 7 weeks in total. And one of those weeks was about decentralized governance. And so I helped them organize that week. And also I thought that it was it would be like a good opportunity for us to test Harmonica, like a pilot project for Harmonica. And so we built a Telegram bot for that week. So we tried to use Harmonica at the conference at Zoo Village, Georgia, and invited participants of the conference of that week, people who attended the sessions that I organized, like with speakers and some workshops. We invited them to use the Telegram bot, Harmonica on Telegram, which also wasn't very successful. Like a lot of people joined those sessions but never finished them. They didn't respond to the questions. And I realized that, yeah, we probably it wasn't the right solution for that context. Like people who attend the conference, they're not members of the same team. Most of them don't know each other, so they didn't have any like skin in the game. They didn't want to discuss anything with each other. They didn't want to help us, Harmonica. So with all that feedback, not feedback, but also like just kind of, basically that wasn't a very successful experiment for us. So we decided to start using to build a web app, like to create something like ChatGPT on the web. And I think that this is currently working pretty well, the web app, but it also has its limitations. And I think that a lot of people just don't want to open links. Like if someone sends them a link, especially if it's not direct messages, but if it's like a channel on Discord and like everyone on the community is invited to join the session, very, very few people actually click on the link. And that's what we've seen recently. For instance, in RNDAO community, like they tried to do a year retrospective with Harmonica in like late December, early January, to reflect on 2024 as a community. And I think it was like 10 people who joined the session with I think like a few hundred members on the Discord server, like maybe 500, 600 members in RNDAO. And only 10 of those users actually joined the session in Harmonica, which, it's a problem for us. And we haven't figured out how to solve this yet. But one of the hypotheses that we have is that we need to go back to building a Discord bot. So maybe we'll make like the full circle, and but it will be a new kind of bot that would be using that would be connected to an agent. So it will be basically like Harmonica agent that would be joining certain channels or threads in a community server, and maybe it will be trying to facilitate discussions happening there, like so that people wouldn't need to leave Discord, they wouldn't need to join any sessions. It won't have any. It will be like sessionless sense-making experience, just happening on the community platform that the community is using.
So the bot inside the group, the Discord group, or Telegram group, or whatever, instead of the user that has to write to the bot privately.
Or joining a session on the web, which is the current solution.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm thinking about this problem. Someone build a project, a platform that could be very useful, and then people maybe they are, as you said, afraid of opening a link, or maybe they are just lazy. I don't know. They have things to do. They have their life, and maybe gamification systems could help in a way to to stimulate users to do a certain thing, to reply. But also, as you say, like the audio could be easier. So you just the user just say something to cell phone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people can share like 10 times more information if they talk instead of typing. And we want to increase the bandwidth. For sense making, we need to get as much information as possible from the community or from the organization. So we really need to, on the one hand, be able to use different modes of like accept different kinds of input, including voice. And on the other hand, we need to be able to join the conversations that are happening already. And that could be a bot that is deployed to a Discord server, or maybe it's just something like a Zoom call. Maybe we should be able to join Zoom calls. So we could build a Zoom app, right, that would be invited to those calls, or we could use the transcripts that are already generated by tools like Otter and Fireflies, those AI note-taking tools. So that's something that we are working on right now. We want to be able to add those transcripts as context to the sessions. So it's not just what people say, or what people tell Harmonica in our sessions, but also being able to import conversations that happened elsewhere, maybe on Zoom, maybe in Discord. We want to be able to kind of combine or merge all those different conversations to form this kind of a collective intelligence, or like context for AI. And then the next question, not a question, but something that we are working on that I want to share with you is that if we manage to like form that collective intelligence or contexts based on all those conversations that could happen in Harmonica or outside of Harmonica, then we also want to be able to turn that into an agent itself, and that agent would be able to represent the opinions or the perspectives of that group of people somewhere else. So this is what we call AI avatars. And I think that could be like a really fundamental breakthrough for like online governance, when groups of people will be able to deliberate on certain topics and then create an AI agent that would represent them based on all those deliberation, based on all those conversations, based on all those responses that people shared, and what they agreed on and disagreed on. So I think it would be very powerful a way to scale deliberative democracy, because it's very hard to deliberate on stuff all the time. Like, people have other things to do. They don't want to join like citizen assemblies every week. But if we manage to create something like a governance surface for the team or for the community, that would enable them to create an agent that would accurately represent their perspectives and values and like intentions, like what do they really want, maybe within the company. Like, maybe a team wants to create an agent that would represent it on like higher level company strategy meeting, right? So that the interests of that team would be represented when the department is making decisions, and then maybe the agent of the department will be represented at the company level decision making. The same applies to politics. Like, maybe a neighborhood can discuss a lot of different stuff, like deliberate for like maybe a few months, and then that context would be enough for this neighborhood to create an agent that would represent this neighborhood on city level deliberation. And then maybe the city, consisting of all those different neighborhoods, would be able to create an agent that would represent the city on national level deliberation. So this is, I think, very, very important because it allows you to scale deliberative democracy.
Absolutely, it's very charming. The way the agents can represent people, and that's also what I was talking about when I said about collectivization of problems. So eventually, like some people that have the same problem can be represented by a certain AI agent to the, I don't know, the state level, town level, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I mean, the platform now is, is developed, and you're talking about a lot of improvements that are very cool. And which kind of, I don't know, like problems you think you will face or skill you would require that you do not have now? I mean, MetaGov, as you said, is a big community, and luckily there are also other communities, and people are collaborating. So, like, is there any help that you need? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for asking. Yes, we need a lot of different kinds of help, that's for sure. We are a small team. There's only 5 members in Team Harmonica, including myself. We have been bootstrapping, like we don't have external funding apart from the Gitcoin grants and the Give donations. So we definitely need, we need to fundraise basically somehow to make it more, to be able to work on this full time. I think I'm the only team member that works on Harmonica full time currently. But that's kind of obvious, right? Like funding. Also, we definitely need like developers who would be aligned with what we're doing, who really like want to fix the democracy and make the planet a more happy place. So developers is another thing, but I guess what we really need right now is the facilitation wisdom, because like I said, I think facilitation is the core value that we are trying to deliver with AI. So Harmonica is basically an AI facilitation tool in a way, like AI powered sense making tool. And facilitation is a big part of that. So I wanted to use this opportunity to share an update from the interoperable deliberative tools program that I participated in with the Harmonica. I think you were also part of that program. And so a few weeks ago, we decided to collaborate with some of other members of this program, including AI Objectives Institute and EYES. So I hope that other projects will also join us and maybe benefit from what we want to do. And what we want to do is open source library of facilitation patterns. So facilitation patterns, facilitation tactics. Basically, we want to turn different facilitation traditions like sociocracy or nonviolent communication or maybe Kuneven, or there's a lot of different stuff that is very, very interesting that has been developed over like decades. Liberating structures is another great example. And those are like different traditions. They are focused on different things. Like obviously, like agile is more about teamwork and like companies, tech companies in particular. And nonviolent communication is just about how you can facilitate a discussion in the room and how can you make people, open and create a safe space for more open discussions. So those are the like different things, different aspects of facilitation, maybe like different even like levels of facilitation. But we want to try to turn all that into code so that tools like Harmonica or Talk to the City or Eyes or maybe some other deliberative tools, which I think, hopefully will be open source as well, would be able to benefit from this open source library, which we call Open Facilitation Library. So we really want to engage as many facilitators as possible to share their wisdom with us. You know, facilitation experts from all those different facilitation traditions. We really want to collaborate with them to create this kind of shared facilitation library.
This is quite cool. I mean, a library, it means that it will help, new developers, new people that have some new ideas to develop their project.
Yeah.
In
I want to
way.
say that, you know, there are some examples of libraries like this. For example, there's a Session Lab library. There is Wise Democracy project that also tried to describe this kind of pattern language of democracy. And there's like a big overlap with what we want to do. But what we also want to do is not just to describe those facilitation tactics or patterns, but also try to turn them into machine readable form. So maybe like TypeScript, so that we could basically teach AI how to use those things, how to use those patterns, so that, you know, we could just like copy those things to the prompts or turn them into agentic workflows and stuff like that. So it's also about the code in a big way.
So a sort of machine learning on all the possible ways the humans use to mediate.
Yeah.
And so it seems like that what are needed now are people that are not from the tech side, from the tech field, but they are studying the ways that people use to resolve conflicts or to facilitate conversations.
Well, citizen assemblies. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like the same in. I mean, there are a lot of peoples that have some, technical knowledge, and so they are developing new tools like could be Harmonica, could be other tools, and a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge, like people that maybe studied facilitation techniques, they still are not in this field. But I really hope that in the next future they will come and teach us all the knowledge that they have. And about questions about other tools that maybe you have seen around that they looked very interesting to you, and that maybe share something with Harmonica, or maybe they are very different, but you were inspired by them. I mean, you cited Polis before.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of tools that trying to do similar things as Harmonica. And there is also a lot of tools that we are using to build Harmonica. But yeah, I guess you're asking me about the former. So yes, obviously Polis is a big inspiration. Unfortunately, it hasn't been updated for a long time. I think it's just like a public good now, and nobody is trying to develop it, like improve the UX. So it's pretty like old school UX, and you could say that we're trying to, like do a similar thing but with a different UX, so that is more modern and conversational and AI powered. But Harmonica is not the only tool that is trying to do that. So I mentioned Talk to the City. I think Talk to the City is a great project, also part of this interoperable deliberative tools program. There is Remash, which is a very mature project, which is also using AI to run collective dialogues. So you could call it a collective dialogue system. By the way, Remash is not open source and it's quite expensive. It costs, I think, around like 35,000 a year. $35,000 a year. I think, yeah, it's a lot of money. I don't know.
Quite a lot. Yeah.
I guess they are. I know that they're working with the UN, and maybe UN is like a pro bono customer for them. But they definitely work with like large companies who can spend that much money on a collective dialogue system, which I find interesting. There's also another American project called ThinkScape, built by a company called Unanimous AI. And I think it costs about the same. I might be mistaken, but I think it costs like 3,000 a month. And ThinkScape is also using AI agents to organize deliberative processes or some kind of online discussions, and they have like a very interesting design. So they create small rooms for people, and people discuss different topics in those rooms, and then there are agents who listen to those discussions, and then they have other agents who represent other groups in your group, so that you could respond to ideas from other groups that are collected by one agent and like reproduced in your group by another agent, something like that. I might be, I hope I'm not wrong, but maybe it's not very accurate description, but I hope that's more or less how they work. So ThinkScape is interesting. I don't know, like, we're building a collective dialogue system. I've been talking. I mentioned a few collective dialogue systems, but there's also very interesting stuff happening, like in bridging systems, like how to identify different opinions and like with what they do with community nodes. And I think community nodes is just an early example of bridging systems, and there will be much more interesting bridging systems in the future. So I think, I think it's interesting to like discuss, not right now. I'm afraid I need to jump off soon, but I think it's interesting to discuss sense-making stack, like what sense-making stack consists of. And I think tools like Harmonica is just one part of that stack. So what else do we need to like enable good collective sense making? To me, it's like open question that I don't know the answer for right now. But like, I think that sense making is definitely something that we need to work on as civilization to address the meta crisis. That's not my thought. That's I think something that I heard from Daniel Schmachtenberger, which is one of my, which have been like a big influence on myself in the last few years. And I think it's important to think about collective sense making and how AI can enable it. I think that there is some irony that on the one hand, AI is a dangerous technology, like it could potentially kill us, kill everyone, but also basically we can't solve the political problems that we have without AI. So I think that's a very interesting moment in history, because on the one hand, we are building the tools that can kill us, but on the other hand, there is this growing political problems that can be solved only with the help of AI. And basically, we
Yeah.
have this window of opportunity. So we need AI, but also it's dangerous. And we need to build AI that would help us to like fix the democracy, or otherwise it will be very dystopic.
Yeah, it seems like a sort of paradox.
Mm.
But yeah, I completely agree that AI and technology can be used, in some good ways to make the world a better place. And
Yeah.
another small question. I mean, there are all these people. I mean, you are part of, and I would say I'm also part of, that are trying to find new ways for people to collaborate, to discuss. And do you think that all these people are collaborating in a good way right now? I mean, the intent of, is to facilitate dialogue and um, for other people, like for DAOs, for companies, for, I don't know, institutions. But at the same time, I think it's important for people like in the civic tech space to collaborate. And do you think that this is happening right now? Do you think that something should improve? Do you have a message for the people in the civic tech?
Well, it's a good question, because I think there is a systemic problem here, which is funding. This stuff is not very profitable, and if it is built for profit, it becomes much harder to use it at scale. I mean, basically, you want this stuff to be open source, like Polis. But if it's open source, then it's very hard to raise funding. It's very hard to hire like engineers, because engineers are very expensive. So all of these projects, they get into this conundrum, or like a difficult situation, where you, on the one hand, it's like you want to build something that would be very like useful for the humanity, but also like it's not easy to fund it, so it's very hard to build it, even if you have some kind of a theory of change and like impact model. And there's like Gitcoin that is trying to solve this problem with grants, right? Like with quadratic funding and grants. And I guess Gitcoin is like a great example, and like there should be more projects like Gitcoin. And thankfully, Gitcoin is also developing a protocol that should enable other communities and other organizations to run similar like grant rounds using their protocol called Allo. And so I think Gitcoin is doing like an amazing job, and I want more people to know about Gitcoin. But also, I think it's just the way the capital is allocated in the economy, and maybe we need to just think of new institutions that would be focused on like funding this kind of projects, because it's hard to fund them with venture capital, because venture capitalists wants to like 10x growth, right, and exits. And it's also not very easy to fund it with grants. Like even though Gitcoin is doing a good job, I think still like you can only win so many grants a year, and those grants are not very big. So you can't hire a lot of experienced developers if you just if your funding is coming from Gitcoin. So one of the things that I was really inspired by or excited about is the idea of guilds as basically like communities or networks that can fundraise and then allocate those funds among their members based on much deeper relationships with those projects than Gitcoin can have, right? So because Gitcoin doesn't care about your project. Gitcoin is using like this kind of mathematical models to identify projects that get a lot of like support from their communities. Like if you can get a lot of people donate, then you get some funding from Gitcoin. With guilds, I think it's much more, it could be much more, basically, it could allow much more substantial funding because if a guild can find like an institution that is aligned with the mission of that guild, it could get a lot of money, and then it would distribute that money among members of the guild, like projects that you know, part of that guild's network or portfolio. So I guess it is kind of similar to a venture studio, but the venture studio is, it's basically a company. You know, it's a company that is part of this kind of capitalistic paradigm. And I think that venture studios are amazing. I think it's one of the most interesting things happening in terms of like startups and venture capital. So like, you know, companies that build startups, right? Venture builders. That's a super interesting phenomenon. You know, there's a community called RNDAO that is trying to do something similar, but with like Web3 projects. And it's like community driven, like they have a Discord server and like everyone can join the server and start contributing to those projects. And hopefully RNDAO will be able to raise funding itself to distribute it among those projects. But still, I think it's not a guild. And maybe Metagov could be that guild. Maybe what Metagov is doing right now, it could be something similar to what a guild is supposed to do. And I hope that with all the reputation and the goodwill that Metagov has built over the years, it would be much easier for Metagov to fundraise than for Harmonica or other projects that are part of this like a Metagov ecosystem. So I hope that you know, we can design and implement this kind of new approaches to funding, which wouldn't be capitalistic, but also would enable to hire engineers.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like, I mean, as we said before, like funding is a problem. And but really hope that in the next future, because of this AI hype, there will be some new kind of fundings. And it's very interesting, the things about guilds. And is there anything else that you'd like to add that I haven't asked? Okay.
No, I think we have covered a lot of important topics. And yeah, I'm grateful for the invitation. This is the first time that I've talked about Harmonica with someone like this, like in a interview format. So it was great for me just to have this kind of experience. And I hope that it wasn't that I wasn't talking too slowly, because that's one of my problems. I talk slowly.
No, I talk in a horrible way, so it was perfect, and it was very interesting for me. So thank you a lot.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about all this.